Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we can finally finish off our deep dive into the wildlife as we talk about the big boy predators of Great Bear. If you're sick of this topic, then you're in luck, because we only have 2 critters to cover in this video, so we'll be in and out before you know it. Just like the previous videos, we're going to be covering each predator's general information, interaction with other wildlife, detection for both you and the predator, defense, and hunting strategies. This video won't cover auroras or the deeper mechanics of hunting, as we will be covering those in a future video. Before we get started, keep in mind that a lot of this information will be overridden if you're playing on Pilgrim difficulty or a custom save with passive wildlife turned on, since, in those situations, all predators will flee when they detect you instead of exhibiting their normal behaviors. So let's get started with this final part of our wildlife overview. We only have 2 things to cover, the bear and the cougar. Since the cougar is exclusive to the Tales from the Far Territory DLC, we'll start with the bear, so those of you in a real rush to go touch grass can get there even quicker. General info. The bears of Great Bear are large and black. Despite usually hibernating through winter, the first flares awoken them from their slumber. They are solitary predators that reside within bear dens, marked by piles of bones found within or nearby. They leave these dens to roam the regions of the island during the day, returning at dusk. But they only begin to return at dusk, so depending on how far the bear was when dusk hit, it could take hours for them to finally make it back to their den. When in their den during night, bears will fall asleep and snore loudly. Don't get too cocky though, as they can still be woken up by things such as gunshots, lit flares, or even just getting too close to them. They're very curious and will expect nearby noises such as thrown stone impacts or even gunshots. They're also the only animal on Great Bear that has a carcass large enough to provide wind protection. Bears also have the strongest sense of smell of all wildlife on Great Bear, and will pick up and follow your survivor's scent from much farther than other predators would. If your survivor has a high enough scent, a bear could detect it from halfway across the region. Despite this, bears are not nearly as aggressive as wolves. If you manage to take down a bear, you'll have quite the bounty available for you. A whopping 25 to 40 kilograms of bear meat, a black bear hide, and 10 gut. Wildlife interaction. Bears are quite simple. They ignore absolutely everything. Despite being carnivorous, they won't pay any attention to, let alone hunt, any of the other wildlife on Great Bear. All wildlife other than the moose and cougar will flee in the presence of a bear. Detection. Bears are pretty hard to miss visually due to the fact that they are giant moving blobs of black against the white snow. Although there may be times where they blend in with a rock wall or are obscured by terrain. Even if you do miss a bear and wander closer than you'd like, they make quite a few sounds that will help you notice it. They have very heavy footsteps that can be heard from a fair distance, and constantly grunt and huff while moving, which can be heard from shorter distances. These sounds will help warn you if there's a bear just behind a rock, hill, or some other terrain. Like wolves, bears detect your player through either sight or scent. If you get too close to a bear or it gets too close to you, whether by coincidence or by following your scent, it'll spot you, making bellowing and growling sounds. After that sound, it will begin to slowly approach your survivor. Defense. Bears are actually pretty easy to defend against, as long as you know what you're doing. First, let's talk about what to do if a bear hasn't even detected your survivor, but you want to get it out of your way. So long as you aren't detected, a bullet or arrow that strikes near or hits a bear can cause it to flee. Careful about hitting the bear though, as that will cause it to bleed out somewhere, and you may lose the opportunity to hunt it until it respawns. Also, be careful when using a firearm this way because, as mentioned before, bears will actually go to investigate nearby gunshots, so if you don't shoot close enough to scare the bear, it may begin walking towards you to investigate the gunshot. You can also shoot a distress pistol flare, or throw a noisemaker at it to guarantee that it will flee, but that's a little overkill if it hasn't even noticed you yet. So what if the bear has detected your survivor, but it's not charging yet? Bears move very slowly towards your survivor, so you can simply just walk or run the other direction. Once you've gone far enough, the bear will lose interest and continue roaming like normal. You can also drop a decoy to distract the bear for a bit if you want to ensure your escape. If you don't feel like running at all, after all you were there first, you can once again use a noisemaker or distress pistol flare. You can also try to use a bow or gun to hit the ground next to the bear, but you have to be very careful to not hit it, as if a bear detects you and is shot, it will charge immediately. But the safest method here is just to turn around and walk away. Bears are a bit scarier once they've begun their charge, as there are a few things that will frighten them once they're charging. The first thing you can do that requires no resources at all is to find some terrain to climb on that the bear can't reach, or find some shelter to hide inside like a vehicle or building. If there's no such place near you, then you have 4 other options. The first is to try and kill it before it reaches you, but this is extremely risky as, on average, you'll only be able to get about 2 shots of a bow or rifle out, and you'll likely need to get a crit on one of those shots to kill it before it mauls you. The second is to exploit the bear's fear of fire. Like wolves, bears have a fear of fire, but the bear fears it far less than wolves do. Only a campfire or lit flare will stop a charging bear, at which point it will stop outside the radius of the fire, waiting for you to leave its safety. While the bear waits, you can throw a lit torch or flare at it, or fire a shot at or near it to cause the bear to flee. Hello, Stars and Post here. I wanted to make sure you guys know that you can't throw the flare that you're currently holding, because if you do that, the bear is going to charge immediately. Okay, that's it. Later. The third thing you can do is throw a noisemaker at it, which will cause it to flee as long as there's not an active aurora. The fourth and final choice you have is to fire a distress pistol flare at the bear. This is the most reliable method of scaring off a charging bear, as it will flee even if the bear is extremely close to you. The final thing to think about with defense for bears is the mauling. Unlike wolves, your survivor cannot fight back against a bear that is mauling them. Bear attacks are usually non-lethal though, believe it or not. Unlike wolves, which constantly whittle away at your survivor's condition during a struggle, a bear mauling will only take away 90% of your survivor's current condition, and you can only die from a bear struggle if you're at very low condition upon the start of an attack. You'll receive blood loss, infection risk, massive damage to clothing, often ruining a piece or two, and whatever item you were holding at the time will be dropped on the ground along with a couple random items from your pack. Do not forget to pick up these items. Even once you've survived a bear struggle, however, you're not in the clear. The bear will start to walk away from you after mauling, but it's still very close. You should grab everything that dropped to the ground and quickly run before applying first aid, because sticking around too long could result in the bear detecting you again. The best way to be prepared for a mauling is to make sure you have bandages and disinfectant on your survivor. You can also try wearing clothing with higher protection, which will reduce the amount of condition loss you'll receive in the attack. Hunting strategies. First things first, and this is something I meant to mention with the moose as well, but empty your pack or bring a travois. Bears are hefty boys, and you're going to need a lot of space to bring all the meat back. Once you've prepared adequate space for the bounty of your hunt, you'll need to choose your weapon. We have 4 options: bows, rifles, revolvers, or the distress pistol. We're going to rule out the distress pistol right away. As I've said many times throughout these wildlife guides, hunting with one can be finicky and I would not recommend it for beginners. We'll also rule out revolvers, but I will mention one thing about them first, which is that a bear will bleed out from any wound. So if you intend to hunt by causing the bear to bleed out, you can use a revolver to start the bleeding to preserve your rifle or bow ammo. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend using revolvers unless absolutely necessary because it'll take a lot of bullets to kill the bear. So we're down to bows and rifles, which are both fantastic options for a bear hunt. So, how do we safely take down this beast? Well, there's a couple strategies you could try. You can try head-on like I mentioned before, where you just keep shooting and hope it dies before reaching you, but that definitely forgoes the safe part of our strategies, so let's shelf that option for now. Another thing you can try is luring the bear to a spot where you can duck into safety after shooting. This can be a hunting blind, vehicle, weird terrain, but ideally not an indoor structure, which I'll explain in a second. After you shoot the bear, it will charge you, assuming that you didn't kill it in the first shot. That's when you're going to duck into your safe spot, which will cause the bear's charge to fail and it will start fleeing. Once it starts fleeing, you'll want to follow it until it fully bleeds out, which is why it isn't ideal to take cover in any indoor structure. The loading screen may cause the bear to spawn in weird, cause blood trails not to register properly, or give the bear enough time to run and you'll lose its trail. Another strategy is just shooting the bear from stealth. As long as the bear doesn't detect you when you hit it, it will flee instead of charging. Then you can follow it until it bleeds out. Those are both fine options, but they aren't quite good enough for me because I don't like having to chase my target as they bleed out, and bears have so much health you'll be chasing them halfway across the map. So let's talk about a method that will consistently allow you to get at least 2 headshots off on a bear before it flees to bleed out, giving you double the chance to crit and dealing more damage to the animal, which results in it bleeding out much quicker. This is the fire stall method. We know that a bear will charge if it detects us and we shoot it. We also know that a charging bear will stop outside of a fire and stay there until scared off. So for this hunting method, you'll get near the bear, but not so close that it detects you, and then you'll start a fire. Once the fire's going, walk just enough away from it that the bear won't consider you within its protection, but also close enough that you can quickly run into the fire's protection once the bear starts to charge. Now we take that head-on option off the shelf and we use it here. Get the bear to detect you and take a shot at its head. It will charge you, but aha! You have a fire right there next to you that you run to. The bear will stop on the edge of the fire, and it will give you another easy headshot right for the taking. In my opinion, this is by far the best strategy for hunting bears and will secure the kill much faster than if you only got one good shot off before the bear flees. Alright, that's the bear. Now we're going to talk about the cougar. Love it, hate it, prefer 1.0, prefer 2.0. It's here now and you gotta learn how to handle it. General info. We have a good bit to go over here. The cougar is an animal that will only appear on Great Bear if you have the Tales from the Far Territory DLC, and they are arguably the most complex animal in the entire game, with a lot of hidden timers and systems. So what I'm trying to say here is there will be a lot of me using the wiki for this portion. But that being said, the cougar in the current state of the game when this video is being made is still pretty buggy. For the general information and stuff with systems and timers, I'll be using a lot of the wiki, but for actual defense, I'm going to be using a lot more of my personal experience because I could not replicate what the wiki described the Cougar's behavior to be when I actually got into my own game. Cougars will only spawn if you enable them at the beginning of a new run, with a couple exceptions. In Pilgrim, Cougars will be disabled by default, and they can't be enabled unless you use custom mode and enable Cougars through that. In Misery, Cougars are enabled by default, and since you can't use a custom mode for Misery, there's no way to change it. Finally, Cougars are disabled in all challenge game modes. When you start a run, there will be a grace period where Cougars can't spawn. The length of this grace period depends on the difficulty of the run, and can be seen on screen right now. Once that grace period is over, a cutscene will play to indicate the arrival of Cougars. Assuming that the grace period has ended, if you exit any interior with a loading screen attached, then that will trigger the cutscene, as will moving through region transitions and sleeping while outside. Cougars will only spawn once the cutscene has played, even if the grace period has ended, and they'll appear in many regions of the island. But there are a handful of regions without any Cougars, such as Broken Railroad or Desolation Point. Okay, that was just about getting the Cougar to show up in your run. Now let's talk a bit about their territories. Cougars sport a light brown, tannish coat, and they roam in their designated Cougar territories. These territories tend to be located around the outer rims of regions unless you provoke them, and they typically don't leave those territories unless your survivor has a very high scent. Unlike any of the other wildlife on Great Bear, Cougars will increase their aggression when bothered by your survivor through the threat level mechanic. Each region has its own threat level, and always begins with a value of 1 when Cougars enter the world. Threat level can reach a maximum of 3, and for each threat level in the region, a new Cougar and Cougar territory along with it will spawn, each one getting more intrusive in the region and harder to avoid. Threat level will increase if you engage with, injure, or kill a Cougar in its territory. Additionally, being attacked by a Cougar may also cause the threat level to increase. There is one more way that threat level increases, which is if you have an extended encounter with a Cougar. While engaged with a Cougar, the threat level will increase by 1 every 15 real-life minutes. The threat level will decrease by 1 if you don't interact with a Cougar for 5 days, despawning Cougars in their territories in the reverse order of their appearance. The final thing that Cougars do in the topic of aggression is expand their territories. Cougar territories start off fairly small, but the more time your survivor spends in the region, the larger the territories of the Cougar get. The only way to decrease the size of the territory is to kill the Cougar that resides within it. Once that Cougar respawns, the territory will be back to its original size. Cougars are meant to be the alpha predator of Great Bear, and possess many of the traits of the other dangerous animals on the island. They have similar movements and stances as gray and poison wolves, 2 attack types, hit and run swipe attacks, and struggles like timber wolves. They have a lot of health and heightened senses, especially sight and smell, like bears, and they mark their territories like moose. If you manage to take down this super predator, you'll be able to harvest some Cougar meat, a Cougar hide, and 2 gut. You'll also get a bonus item when harvesting the pelt, the Cougar claw. Only 1 claw can be harvested per Cougar, the others weren't good enough anyway, and it's used to create the best knife in the game, the Cougar claw knife. Wildlife interaction. Ptarmigans, rabbits, deer, moose, and all wolf variants will flee from the Cougar. The Cougar will ignore all of those animals and, surprisingly, doesn't hunt any prey like wolves do. Cougars and bears ignore each other completely, and Cougars will ignore other Cougars. If you somehow manage to get multiple Cougars to notice you at the same time, the closest one to your survivor will attack and the farther one will flee. Detection. The first thing to cover here is how to detect a Cougar territory. First things first, Cougar territories are marked on the map once they enter the world, so you can use those to know their general locations, but the map won't indicate the current size of the territory. For that, you'll have to rely on other signs. Those signs include Cougar markings, such as trees with bark torn off, trees with blood streaks and bloody prints, and ravaged deer remains, which appear as an unharvestable doe carcass that has been extremely lacerated and has a broken neck. But those signs will likely not be the first indicators you notice, as there will be 2 that are pretty dang hard to miss. The first one is the Cougar theme music, and will play when your survivor is within 200 meters of a Cougar. The second is the sounds that the actual Cougar itself makes. So let's now talk about how to detect the Cougar itself. Despite being stealth predators, Cougars are actually the easiest to detect in the game. Their light brown coats stick out against all terrain, and while they roam their territory, they let out soft squeaks and meows. That's a way of putting it. I'll let you decide how to classify these sounds. And that's while I'm not even in its territory yet. Anyways, these sounds will get louder the closer the Cougar is to your survivor, and once close enough, you may even hear the sound of a twig snapping, indicating that a Cougar is very close by and you might want to prepare a change of pants. Keep in mind that these noises generally often sound like they're far away, and oftentimes it can be tough to discern their directionality. So it'll be harder to rely on those sounds to know where the cougar is, you'll just know that it's close. Cougars have the farthest detection range of all wildlife on Great Bear, and once a cougar has detected your survivor, it will aggressively growl and begin to stalk them. While you're being stalked, the cougar will continue to growl and hiss at you, trying to drive you out of its territory. If you don't listen to the bossy kitty's commands and let it get too close or let it stalk you for too long, it will let out a quick series of high-pitched growls and snarls and then charge you. You can't outrun a cougar, so once you hear that sound, well, let's just say you better either have a weapon ready or the extra pair of pants I mentioned. Defense. First off, let's talk about how to escape a cougar once it's spotted you. Keep in mind for this section that, as long as there's no scent value for the cougar to follow, and it's not already begun charging you, you will leave your survivor alone once they've left the territory. So the escape condition here is to get out of their territory before they charge you. Much like all wildlife on Great Bear, a surefire way to guarantee your safety is to get your survivor on some terrain that is outside the cougar's pathfinding, at which point it will take a defensive stance, similarly to wolves. Unlike wolves, however, cougars won't flee when a weapon's aimed at them while in this stance. It will only flee if you shoot it with a weapon or throw a noisemaker at it. If you get the cougar to flee, it will only run a short distance before continuing to stalk you, so make the most of the little time you have to escape. To get a cougar to stop stalking you, you'll need to break its line of sight on your survivor for a little while, or, like we said before, leave its territory, at which point it'll just continue to roam about its territory. Another option you have is to run into an interior location, meaning you go through a loading screen when entering the area. Doing that will cause the cougar to despawn, and then respawn at a point within its territory once you go back outside. Be careful with this though. You may be able to kite wolves just by keeping your distance from them, but if the cougar stalks your survivor for too long, it will charge them regardless of distance. So if there isn't shelter like that really close by you, you should still try to run away, but you'll need to prepare a method to hold the cougar off once it charges you. When a cougar does charge you, you'll need to act fast. They are incredibly fast, and you cannot outrun them. There are a few ways to scare it off the charge. Cougars have a very limited fear of fire. They won't fear any lit torch or flare, and they only respond to a campfire. If a cougar charges you, start a campfire and stand close to it. Doing this will cause the cougar to stop the charge and cause it to flee briefly, giving you a small window to try and break its line of sight or retreat indoors. Up until now, the distress pistol has been the ultimate deterrent for wildlife, capable of scaring even an up-close and charging bear. But you won't be able to rely on it here. Cougars show no fear of distress pistols, so don't bother wasting a flare shot trying to scare it off. The final thing you can do is try to shoot the cougar while it's close to you. Whether you hit or miss it, it may perform a drive-by attack instead of a struggle. This will only work if the cougar is in close range when the shot is taken. This attack will hurt your survivor, but much less than a struggle would. It'll also cause your equipped weapon to drop, so make sure you pick that back up so you're not defenseless. The cougar will flee briefly before continuing its pursuit. Pursuit. Anyway, this will be your final window to escape and can be repeated up to 3 times, but on the 4th charge, you will not be able to avoid a struggle. If you get into a cougar struggle, contemplate your existence and ask how you got to this point. You can't fight back against the cougar struggle, which will cause extreme condition damage, about 40 to 60%, severely damage your outer clothing. Some items will drop on the ground similar to bear maulings, several immediate applications of infection risk along with the unique affliction's severe lacerations, which will last for 72 hours, limits your maximum condition to 50%, and applies a new instance of blood loss and infection risk every 12 hours. Doesn't sound fun. The only thing you can do to try and defend against this is wear protective gear and carry a lot of bandages and antiseptic when walking through cougar territories. If you don't want to carry that much, then you'll also be fine if you have a nearby safe house that's stocked with those supplies, but you should carry at least 3 treatments worth of bandages and antiseptic for any initial blood loss and the initial infection risk with the severe lacerations. Hunting strategies. Alright, now you're sick and tired of this mean kitty. Super predator my left butt cheek, am I right? So how do we take one of these things down? Before even leaving for the hunt, deck yourself out with the most protective gear you can get. Thankfully, we know from my video on clothing that it's possible to achieve over 100% protection, nullifying all condition damage that the cougar might deal to us. Although we will still receive afflictions, so make sure to also bring plenty of first aid. Now, similarly to wolves, you must choose stealth or head on. For stealth, you want to choose a rifle as your weapon unless you're a fantastic shot with the bow or you have bow level 5 to be able to crouch while shooting it. Either way, you'll need to crouch as soon as you enter the cougar's territory, because it will spot you from very far away if you don't. Your goal now is to get a successful shot off on the cougar from as far away as you can, without it detecting you. If you do so, it will flee a short distance and then begin to stalk you. Keep shooting at it while it approaches. It will begin to charge once it takes damage, but if your aim is good, you can get up to around 3 more shots off before it reaches you, which should kill it if your survivor's respective weapon skill is at least 3, because at that point you have a lot of damage and crit bonuses. This seems pretty risky though. You'll get one shot off, but after that it's all just hoping you shoot well. Don't worry, there's one more thing you can do to help give your survivor some reinforcement in this encounter, which is to start a fire nearby before engaging the cougar. Just like the bear, stand far enough away from the fire that it won't mess up the behavior of the cougar. Then begin to shoot at it, and once it gets uncomfortably close in its charge, fall back to the fire and use the head-on method from there. The head-on method is simple. Like I just mentioned, start a nearby fire and step away. Get the cougar to notice you, take a shot, then return to the fire. It'll go to the fire, flee briefly, and then you can get it to notice you once again and shoot it again. After a couple rounds of repeating that, the cougar will die and you'll have conquered this mighty beast, while also simultaneously spawning another one immediately in the same region, but that's not important right now. We don't talk about that. But what's most important is that we did it! This is officially every animal you'll find on Great Bear. It took way longer than I originally anticipated to get through all this stuff, but I hope that you have a better grasp on these critters now, and I'm sure we're all ready to move on to new topics. If I missed anything or got anything wrong, please let me know. The integrity of the information I give you guys is very important to me. If you like the video, then please like the video. It helps out the channel a bunch. If you have any questions, comments, or requests, then please let me know in the comment section. I love reading what you guys have to say, and you're all so amazing. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.